So thank you very much for coming to the session, staying for the session. I'm Carmen Sutter. I'm one of the product managers on Adobe I/O, and Klaas-Jan sort of provided a perfect transition, a little bit about showing the Adobe I/O website, and we'll tell you about the capabilities that are being offered by Adobe I/O for developers on top of the cloud platform.
And hello, guys. My name is Sarah Xu. I work as a developer evangelist for Adobe I/O, and I'll be accompanying Carmen today to talk a little bit about some of our technologies.
So if you've worked with Adobe at all, you've seen this motto. We like to talk about digital experiences and how we enable and empower our customers to create digital experiences. And those digital experiences have a couple of sort of requirements and customer challenges that we need to overcome, and we need to help you overcome. We need to integrate, or our customers need to integrate various systems. We know that no company, no customer is only using one stack. Everybody has multiple tools, multiple systems, multiple products, and we want them to work together. We also know that we want to deliver data and content-relevant experiences in near real time for users and customers. And we want to work with all of the content and all of the data that is unique to the business. There are some commonalities, but every company, every user, every customer has unique data and content requirements. And we all have our individual apps that we need to deploy, and we need to deploy quickly. And this is where Adobe I/O comes in. So how many of you have heard of Adobe I/O, have been to the site, have used? A few of you. Okay, great. So a typical architecture slide, where do we sit? So Adobe I/O is part of the cloud platform. We work across all of the different clouds, but I know the focus for this conference is around Experience Cloud. Actually, that's where my initial background is as well, so I always like coming to events like this. So Adobe I/O is the developer platform and a developer ecosystem for Adobe. We are a cross-cloud service sitting on top of Sensei, which the Klaas-Jan touched on a little bit as well, and then have the content and data platforms underneath it with a connector and storage foundation across, or at the bottom of it all. Storage foundation. Talk a little bit more about Adobe I/O specifically. So what do? We are empowering our customers to unlock the full value of solutions. If you're only using the UI, if you're only using the existing products as a user, there might be use cases that you cannot solve for. So by making APIs and other services available, Adobe I/O helps our customers unlock full value and more value out of the solutions. We enable integrations, and we make those faster and more efficient. We extend platform for unique needs. So if there are specific capabilities that are unique to your business or customer business, those can be done through Adobe I/O. And we help customize and augment those use cases. So we have 3 specific themes, and we'll touch on those specifically in the next sections. The first one is open APIs, and that's really how Adobe I/O started. It started as an initial API gateway for internal APIs, and then we started to expose some of the APIs that were in all different places in one common console. But we know that developers need to work with APIs to connect to third-party systems and just be part of the workflows that you are already working with. We also are working on a next-generation platform. So you'll hear us talking about serverless capabilities. You'll hear us talking about event-based architecture. So we're not stopping at APIs, but really the next-gen developer platform. And then developer success, so providing tools for developers to quickly build solutions and integrations and extend the cloud platform. So here's a quick look of the APIs that are currently available on Adobe I/O. So we have the I/O console, which you can access from adobe.io. And we started with some of the Creative Cloud APIs early on. So we have Typekit and Adobe Stock. There's PDF services, and you'll see 2018, like this was really the year where we started to add a lot more APIs, and you'll see this list growing. For those of you that work on Campaign Standard has been one of the early APIs that's been available on I/O. For AEM, we have the Smart Content Service, which is the auto-tagging capabilities. There are capabilities or APIs for GDPR, so if you have delete requests, you can use that API for that. We just recently added Adobe Analytics Api, so the new version of the storage API and reporting APIs are now available on Adobe I/O. And then also user management, Target, and we keep continuing that list, making sure that we have more and more APIs for you and one place to get those. Because we know it's hard if you have to go to 5 different admin consoles and get 5 different API keys just for one integration. That really should just be one API key. So that's where Open API is really one of the initial thoughts of why we build Adobe I/O and a big part of what we do every day. So that was Open APIs. So now let's dive a little bit into our next gen platform, Adobe I/O Events. It's actually my product. I'm really proud of what the team has built. We allow developers to subscribe to meaningful platform events. Now, what does that mean? A meaningful event could be an asset has been added, an AEM page has been published, a custom AEM event that you're tracking in your implementation has happened. APIs are great to let you poll, but you want to be notified when something happens, right when it happens. So you can subscribe to be notified by providing a webhook to 3 different event types that we support, Creative Cloud, AEM, and Adobe Analytics triggers. We ping that webhook as soon as that event happens. We like talking about it in near real time, so a few second delay. But you can take actions as soon as something happens and as soon as something meaningful happens. In addition to webhooks, we also have a journaling API. So in case your webhook is down for some reason, you can come back and we have an API and you can retrieve events for a specific time period that you specify. And it will work seamlessly with Io Runtime, and we'll talk about that in a second. We'll also have a little demo, so hopefully that'll work out. I know it's the business track, but it's always more fun when there's things to look at. And analytics triggers, I'm not sure how many of you are working with analytics, if you're familiar with triggers at all. I see some nodding. For those of you who are not, triggers is basically a complex eventing workflow that sits on top of your analytics data, on top of the analytics live stream. And up until recently, that only worked with Campaign. So you could say, hey, I define a flow where somebody abandons their shopping cart, abandons a form. Now go to Adobe Campaign and send off an email. What we've done with I/O Events is decouple that from Campaign. You can still use Campaign, you can use the Campaign APIs, but we allow you to subscribe to those triggers via webhook, and you take actions anywhere. You could go and update your CRM system about the fact that somebody abandoned their shopping cart. You could go and indicate product interest. So by decoupling triggers from Campaign and making it available through I/O Events, we're opening up use cases that we haven't been able to solve for before. So happy to dive a little bit more into I/O Events after the session if you have questions. As I mentioned, product that's very near and dear to my heart. We officially launched at Summit earlier in March this year. Not all of you are developers, and you might still want to take advantage of those events. So if you're familiar with these no-code, low-code providers, IFTTT, Microsoft Flow, Zapier, another one of the companies here is Azuqua. And they allow you to basically build orchestration workflows without having to write code. So you can say, you can pull in I/O events, AEM events, analytics triggers, and then basically it's like a drag and drop workflow where you can connect it to Slack, to Trello, to a whole number of third-party applications. So it's like a no-code implementation of I/O events. Just a quick announcement or high-level overview of what we've done. with that, as we talk about runtime, I'm going to hand it over to Sarah, who can tell you a little bit of what we're doing there, and then go to our demo.
So Carmen has set a... Hello?
Oh, yeah.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Awesome. So Carmen has kind of give great context on APIs and events. And now that with those things, ideally you want your developers to be able to build with the APIs and events. And that's part of the reason why we've come up with Io Runtime. So how many in the room are familiar with serverless? Okay, see some hands, great. The easiest way that I've been explained to with this is I came from a developer background. Imagine all I need to care about is the code. I don't need to care about the infrastructure. I just build the code, push to GitHub, auto deploys. Automatically, I have all the services up and running. And that's serverless. Eventually, we are providing the infrastructure needed so that all you need to be concerned with is deploy your code onto our platform, and the rest is handled. There's auto scaling involved. There's essentially usage tracking so that to make sure that your service will be up when you need it, but also you're only billed for the hours when you're using it. So the idling hours cost subtracts from that won't exist anymore. So with that, Adobe Io Runtime really is our serverless platform, where we see. However, I do want to make a distinction here.
You good on the slide, or you want to go? Yeah. Oh, I figured you want to go to the next slides.
Oh, where even though we are running, we're not trying to compete with any other general serverless solutions. It's really the specific capabilities that you need to, let's say, make a connection between analytics triggers and campaign. Instead of using the connector that's provided, or you want to use it with targets, you have some simple custom code that you do data transformation with, that you may query additional systems. You can easily deploy those small chunks of code onto runtime and just have it there. Similar to things like data transformation, which is, for a lot of different system connections, that's kind of a pain point. Instead of having to spin up a whole server just to support that one need, you can deploy it onto runtime, and it only runs when you need it, maybe once a day, maybe once a week. Hopefully that description gives you a little bit of a background on what is runtime. And runtime, particularly in the context of Adobe Cloud Platform, provides these three key values. I'm going to use this because I think my voice is going in and out with that one. So first of all, like I said, it makes it easier. Lowers the barrier. Instead of having to deal with an entire infrastructure, all you need to do is write your simple code and deploy it. Second, as Adobe is moving to more of a platform approach instead of just SaaS, we were really looking to build an ecosystem. So for those of you who were in Klaus John's talk, we focused a lot on how we can build this entire ecosystem around our platform, and runtime is one of the ways to do it. Imagine if you can build your custom package that maybe multiple of your customers use, and you can deploy this, you can allow people to license it and then charge by licensing. So it really transforms into an ecosystem model instead of SaaS only. And all of your custom code becomes throwaway after particular clients. So that's another value proposition of runtime. Now, last but not least, it's really orchestration. So you're dealing with multiple services. The data services that Klaus John talked about, Sensei services, we're rolling out with content services. So how to put all of these pieces together and be able to customize it to the need of your customer, that orchestration capability is really lying in runtime. Adobe Io Runtime is actually built upon Apache OpenWhisk, which is an open source project that we collaborate upon with IBM as well as other open source developers. If anyone has used IBM Cloud Functions, that is also based on Apache OpenWhisk. Now, so we take OpenWhisk and then it's deployed onto essentially our hosted infrastructure where you can run Node.js code as of the moment. And we're rolling out with all the other language supports like Python, Java, all the languages that are commonly used. And then, as Carmen has talked about IO events, you can use runtime actions. So actions are kind of the definition of a function within runtime. You can use actions as webhooks to receive your event to kick off entirely event-driven integrations. So, for instance, when a trigger from analytics fires, you can instantly receive it in a webhook within runtime. Like I said, query different system, figure out what you want to do with it, maybe call Sensei to gain additional intelligence on your customer, and then maybe use Target to do real-time retargeting, or use Audience Manager to update your audience segment with the new product information. Now, the last piece is really, we try to customize runtime with Adobe-specific features. Things like authorization, things like our custom languages that we support for anyone who's within AEM, HTML, stuff like that. So really being able to provide this Adobe-specific serverless. Now the next diagram, hopefully help you visualize this better. So it's kind of what we call as the 4 tiers of runtime. As I said, the very core of it is Apache OpenWhisk. Now we take that, we deploy it into multi-cloud across Adobe infrastructure. And then on the layer of custom runtime, we build specific SDKs, we build authorization support, so that when you're making a call to, let's say, Target within runtime, you won't have to worry about generating your own JWT. For those of you who know, that's kind of how Adobe authenticates your Experience Cloud usage. And you can just make API calls and those integrations a lot easier. Now, on the very outer layer, it's actually extensibility provided by different Adobe solutions that sits on top of runtime. How many of you have played with the new commerce integration framework? We got one hand. So for those of you, so essentially it's a new solution come up. It's a new framework that's come up by the AEM Commerce team to allow you to more flexibly plug in different backends and extend, to put it in a simple way. So with time, we're going to see more and more Adobe solutions, including another one is Sensei services. So Sensei content services, auto-tagging, auto-cropping, all of those libraries are built into runtime so that you can call it with ease or extend the existing action. So imagine there's an action sitting in there that just does auto-crop out of the box. But instead of auto-cropping, you want to customize it to say, these are my specific sizes. Whenever I call an action, I want to always have it do these things. So you can deploy that to utilize the existing Sensei function, but at the same time plug in your custom configurations. Did that make sense? I feel like I lost half the room there. So, and long story short, many teams are beginning to put their extensibility libraries on there, on runtime, which allows you to easily extend kind of what's out of the box that's provided there. And you don't have to worry about hosting, you don't have to worry about configuring your infrastructure, you can just deploy the code. With that, I'm going to jump to a demo. Now, I'm going to make an excuse because the Slack has been a little fidgety today, so let's hope that this is going to work. I'm going to drag in my image, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm a huge cat person, so this is actually my very fluffy fat cat, Honey. So while we wait, what's happening is right now we're in AEM, and then this AEM instance, in AEM DAM, this AEM instance is configured through IO events that Carmen just talked about, and it's going through Adobe Io so that whenever a new image gets added in here, It picks up the event, it picks up all the metadata associated with it, and it's forwarded it into a webhook. Now, that webhook exists in runtime. We've configured an action to say this is, whenever event comes in, it needs to go to this webhook. What the webhook is doing in the background right now is receiving this, actually coming into this AEM instance to grab the image, and then invoking Slack API to post this into a Slack channel. Now, drum rolls, if this actually occurs right there. Perfect. There we go. So as you can see, with the timestamp, the image gets processed in real time. All of the actions that I talked about executed in serverless in real time. With that, I'm going to pass it back to Carmen to start the developer success portion.
Thank you, and fingers crossed the demo actually worked. So this was a really, really simple use case, but the applications really are limitless, right? You could publish a new page on AAM, and you could kick off a workflow to test that page, or run load testing on it, or send it over to your QE team. You could add assets to AAM or to Creative Cloud, and it can go to Jira or Trello board, wherever your workflows are happening. So basically, we have events that are the signal. We have runtime that basically lets you build the logic without having to stand up your own servers, have to worry about your own infrastructure. It's all happening within the Adobe infrastructure. And then we have APIs that allow you to take that action. And all of that is happening in the I/O console. So the I/O console basically allows third-party developers to access those APIs and leverage those services and extend the platform. The console, if you have an Adobe ID, you can log in and you can use that console. Currently, on the Experience Cloud side, you have to be a system administrator. We know that is a big limitation, especially for larger orgs, where you don't necessarily want to give system admin access to everybody who's going to access an API. So we are working on some additional permissioning. But if you have an org and you're a system admin, go check out console.adobe.io, so you can see the different APIs, you can access events, and we'd be happy to talk to you about getting early access to runtime as well. So there are about 22 services across the different clouds. We have the event providers in there as well. For events, we have debug tracing and journaling, so you can figure out what's happening with your webhooks. And then in addition, the console is also used for Creative Cloud SDK downloads. So I don't know if some of you might be working with Creative Cloud as well. So if you need the InDesign SDK or Photoshop SDK, those can also be accessed from the console directly. So go check it out. It's on console.adobe.io. Links to documentation for the different APIs. And we will continue to add APIs and services and events to that interface. I guess just to sort of highlight all the things that I just told you about. But we have also made some of the early Sensei content services available in the console. Again, if there's interest and if you have use cases, we'd be happy to put you in touch with the teams that are running early beta programs around Sensei content services. And yeah, the Analytics API, I think, was a big win to get that onto the console as well. And with that, there's a couple of other tools, and I'm going to let Sarah, who was an actual developer, unlike me, talk about those as well.
So parallel to what Carmen just talked about, the console, which is essentially our one-stop shop developer portal where you can do everything. However, as we know, a lot of developers don't like going through a lot of UIs to toggle through integrations, to do a lot of those, to do a lot of the manual clicking through. Hence, we've also come up with our CLI tool. So it's a command line tool that essentially allows you to manage your integrations, to do a lot of the things that you're capable of in the console, And in addition, the CLI is also how you can interact with Runtime, our serverless environment. We're coming out, I think the official GA date for this is in a month or two. My apologies for being a little fuzzy on the date, but we call it AIO. So that's our command line tool that, like I said, allows you to create integrations, manage them, manage access, get access to serverless, all of those fun stuff right from your terminal instead of having to do the UIs. Last but not least, so this is kind of an existing pain point for many Adobe developers for a very long time, which is our authorization system. So in terms of authorization, we're doing a couple things. We're doing a couple things from the Adobe Io perspective to enhance it, both working with our internal, if you know, IMS, Identity Managed Services at Adobe, to come up with a new scope that's more comprehensive, that covers across different products, as well as improving the documentation that we have out there. Now, the first part, as I said, the OAuth 2.0 is really a new way of how you would interact. You would certify yourself and get access to certain products. But one of the instances is if you've played with the Adobe, with the Analytics Reporting API, that actually uses the OAuth 2.0 way of authenticating. And I think it's our very first Experience Cloud product to actually use OAuth instead of the traditional JWT flow. And second, we are really trying to get better at documentation and at helping our developers. So we're improving documentation across the board, building new tools, building new workflows, everything we can do to help in that realm. With that, coming back to kind of a summary, we've really talked about open APIs, the next-gen platform, as well as developer success at Adobe I/O. At the end of the day, Adobe I/O is the developer platform we're looking to centralize all of our developer offerings there. And hopefully with your help, and please do test it out, you'll really see the benefits of having everything in one place and help us grow.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're a little early. We made up for all the time that Klaus-Jan took. So if you have questions, we'll be around. I also know you probably can use a break in between sessions. But thank you for coming. We're excited about what our customers and our customers' customers are building using Adobe I/O. So if you have use cases, if you're telling me AM events are fine and good, but I really want target events, let me know, let us know, come talk to us, and hope you enjoy the conference. Thank you.
Thank you all.